Hi there. In this video we're going to demonstrate just how easy it is to import information from your SFTP server into Gecko. It's a very quick process and I'll walk you through every single step of the way. To begin with, we're going to go to Settings and we're going to navigate to Import Data. I'm going to go ahead and click New Import, and then I'm asked by Gecko to choose what type of information we want to import. It's going to be a file import, which is also sometimes known as a flat file import. To begin with, we're going to give this a title within Gecko, just so we can differentiate it from other imports. And we're going to tell Gecko whether or not this is a one-off, one-and-done deal, or if this is something which is going to happen en masse in the future. So it is, in this case, a recurring export. Gecko supports a number of different types of imports, so we can import, for instance, contacts, so lists of contacts, pretty straightforward. Responses, this is information to maybe forms that you've captured elsewhere that you want to have on Gecko as well, that you can bulk upload. We can also upload lists of events, titles, start dates, etc. So again, we can have all of the data in one place in Gecko, and also lists of organizations. Now, our US friends will hopefully forgive us for spelling this in the UK style, but effectively this is lists or groups of entities such as high schools, colleges. You can then have contacts a part of, so you can see all students who are on, or contacts on your system who belong to certain high schools or colleges, for instance. In this particular case, though, we're going to go for a contacts export. As we scroll down now, we're asked by Gecko to provide information for that SFTP server, the credentials, so that we're actually able to access this. Now, I do not remember this off the top of my head, so I'm going to pop this in. The host name is basically the address of the SFTP server. The port is the port that we need to access this on, username, and a super secret password. And the only other field that I've skipped over there is the path, which is just simply the directory that the file is currently living in. The final field to choose is what type of server are we accessing. Is it a straight up FTP? In our case, it's an SFTP server. And then all we need to do is access that folder. Now, Gecko's using these credentials. It's then managed to pull that information, and we're then asked by Gecko how frequently would we like this to run. So is this an hourly thing, every 3 hours, 12 hours, 24, 7 hours? The way this basically works is it should match up to the cadence of whichever system or whatever method you're using to deposit these files in your CSV. So for instance, if your CRM system is putting these files on your SFTP every hour, tell Gecko to check every hour, because we'll pull in the most recently created file every time. Now, the options here are we could ignore the first row, which is really useful if you're using column headers, as I am in a moment. So if your spreadsheet skips straight to the data, so in the very first row of your spreadsheet, it's going to be information you want to import. Tell Gecko to ignore the first row or not, based on whether or not you're using headers. I think I muddled those two ways around. If it does use headers, ignore the first row. If it doesn't and it skips straight to the data, then don't. You can enforce validation rules as well to ensure that only the contacts with the correct information are coming into Gecko. So for instance, name and email, anyone who doesn't have a name, there's no point really importing them. As we scroll down then, we have the ability to view a little preview of the spreadsheet. So I've told Gecko to go to the CSV and import, and this is where we get to choose the mapping. So for reference, this is the file that I just uploaded to my SFTP folder, and we've got the first name, the first row that we do want to ignore, because there's nobody called first name, last name, email, program of interest. So let's tell Gecko to ignore that first row. And we then get a preview of rows 2 and 3. So in the first row, we have first name. So I'm going to tell Gecko that this should be imported into the full name, first name field. And kind of interesting to note, we want to make this as easy as possible for you. We want to make your CSVs work in Gecko and not have to tailor them specifically for Gecko. So we do allow for a range of different formats. So if you had first name and last name in the same field or separated by a comma, you can choose that. But in my case, I've got it just as the first name in column A and the last name in column B. We're then going to map the student email address to the Gecko email address contact field. And lastly, we're going to map this to the program of interest field. Once I'm done with that, I just hit Save Changes. That import is saved. And we do also have the option to add workflows off the back of this. So for instance, if we wanted to add a label to all of the contacts coming in, if we wanted to add everyone as part of this import to an event or to one of the organizations we were talking about, you can absolutely choose to do that right here. If we go to our contact section, as soon as this is run, we will see the contacts there momentarily as Gecko processes those. But really, that's as simple as it is. Settings, import data, set up that recurring import, and you're good to go. That will run then, in my case, every hour on the hour until I tell it to stop.